Good evening, everyone. Here's another DiEM25 video chat. Right from the beginning, from the time when we inaugurated DiEM25 in Berlin at the Volksbühne in February 2016, we were very clear on what we wanted to do. We wanted to lead with ideas. We wanted to lead with policy proposals and recommendations, a policy agenda for a progressive, democratized and democratizing Europe. But we had also said that once we develop our policies and once we establish good links with a variety of political actors across Europe, we will try our damnedest to ensure that there is an alliance, a progressive alliance that promotes those policies and gives electors, voters across Europe an opportunity to vote for those and support them, and gain hope from the fact that they have an alternative. We also made the point that if these alliances do not manage to go beyond the standard politicking, which is not policy-oriented, and in the end our policy agenda falls flat, then we will have to consider running ourselves. Since March 25th, when we launched the European New Deal, it became abundantly clear to many of us that political parties, even those who were close to us, spiritually, philosophically, politically, were simply not that interested, that they were not serious about policy. Moreover, we noticed something else. We noticed that they're very deeply divided. So somebody asked me, and let me just go straight to a question, how would you feel about running against other progressive political forces in an election, like, for instance, Die Linke in Germany? Well, let's consider that, shall we, for a moment. Die Linke ran in the recent election in Germany on an agenda that put good people off. Why? Because they're deeply divided amongst themselves. What is the connection between the Oscar Lafontaine camp in Die Linke and Katja Kippen? They're like two different parties. But if you try to create a common program out of those two, all you end up is with a blancmange. You end up with a very unappetizing mix. Now, DiEM25, facing this situation, has to make a decision. We'll all make this together. We can sit on the sidelines and keep supporting a wing of a party that in the end does not manage to take our European New Deal to the people of Germany, let's say, or to the people of France, the equivalent in France, hoping that at some point this will happen. Or we can move in the direction of the proposal that I want to discuss today. So let me just very briefly remind you what the proposal is and what it is not. It is not a proposal to turn DiEM from a movement into a party. This is why the title of the document that is before you is not just another political party. DiEM25 has a number of instruments, a number of means by which to do our work and to change Europe. We have our DSCs, we have our national committees now, we have our validating council, we have our assemblies, our policy paper writing mechanisms, drafting mechanisms. The proposal is that we add another instrument to the movement toolkit. And that instrument is, we call it on purpose, not a political party, but an electoral wing, an outfit which hangs under the DiEM umbrella, one of the many means by which DiEM, the movement, does its job, its work, which gives us the option, not the obligation, of either participating in some alliance with other political parties in some jurisdiction, when we decide as a unitary movement on the basis of an all-member vote to go ahead, or not to. So let's be clear on what the proposal is. The proposal is firstly not to create a political party, but to allow DiEM, the movement, to develop electoral wings in different countries. The question whether these will contest elections or not is a different question. It will be decided together on the basis of the specifics of a particular country and of a particular election. Maybe we will run in a local government election, but not in a national election. Maybe we will run in the European Parliament election 2019 in one country, not in the other. For instance, in Poland, it's quite clear to me that DiEM25 is going to throw its lot behind Razem. In Denmark, it's very likely that since there is an existing party whose leadership were instrumental in setting up DiEM, and I'm talking about the alternative party, that we will support them. In other countries, like in Greece, where the political terrain has absolutely fragmented and collapsed, and the vast majority of the people have no way of expressing their radical Europeanism, the essence of what that no vote in the referendum of July 2015 was, we may choose to run. Since it's, for me personally speaking, as Yanis Varoufakis, I cannot see whom we could support. Every electoral wing will be absolutely under the control of the movement. All decisions about the policies of the electoral wing, let's say in Greece or in Italy, will be made by all of us, whether we're Greeks, Italians, Germans, Brits, like we've been making all our decisions. So a DiEMer in Italy may choose not to be a member of the electoral wing of DiEM25 in Italy, but still will control the policies of the electoral wing of DiEM25 simply because he or she will be a member of a movement that has these electoral wings. We'll talk about this a little bit more later on, and actually I would so much prefer it if this was a running debate with you, so that I wouldn't just talk on my own. We have to find a platform that does that and allows for this kind of discussion to take place, close parenthesis. Now, regarding the process, we have announced it, but let me say a few words about it. Point number one. At the moment, what we have done as the coordinating collective is we've asked all of you to send us feedback on this proposal. And feedback does not only mean improving our proposal, but also counter proposals. We are going to collate them so as to make sure that all opinions and all major options are presented and voted for. And then, of course, there will be a second round if none of them get 50% plus one of the vote. But remember, this is only in order to decide if we are going to adopt any kind of electoral wing. It is not to decide that we will run in elections. That will be a separate vote, conditional on the success or failure of an option which involves a degree of electoral involvement in the next few months and years. So let me now go to the questions, because I've spoken far too long. Mind you, I'm still speaking because this is a monologue. We need to do something. We need to fix this. Okay, so I'll take it. I'll just take some questions all together and say a few words. What is the real purpose of trying to go to the European Parliament? We don't really care about going to the European Parliament. But what we do care about is that the European Parliament elections are a pan-European electoral contest that allow DiEM to table its European New Deal, its transparency agenda, its green transition agenda, its policy on refugees and migration, its policies on democracy, on the European Union Constitution, at a pan-European canvas. That is what we want. But this is an infrastructure, a whole election that takes place from Finland to Portugal and from Ireland to Greece. This is a fantastic opportunity for us to actually table our proposals, make sure that the European New Deal is out there, that people can actually vote for it. But what does it mean? Not a power, to say that we are not a power-seeking bureaucratic party. In democracy, power means democracy. No. In democracy, democracy is about taking power away from the minority and empowering the majority. It means taking power away from the insiders and giving it to the outsiders, but also in a way that guarantees civil liberties, humanist principles, and prevents the tyranny of majoritarianism. That's what democracy means. I'm absolutely convinced that if we were interested in power, we would have joined something else. We would have joined the SPD in Germany, the Syriza party here in Greece, or I would not have left the Syriza party if I cared about having power. We don't care about that. What we do care about is utilizing the processes of democracy in order to pursue our common principles and our common vision. Could you specify in which countries we have progressive allies and in which countries running might be necessary? I just mentioned 2 countries in which we have clear allies. We have Poland and we have Denmark. In other countries, either we don't have allies or our allies are heavily fragmented and in a state of permanent infighting. Look at Italy. Look at Germany. I mentioned Die Linke before. How do you feel about DiEM25 competing with Die Linke and other progressives? Really terrible. Really terrible. But you see, I'm going to repeat what I said before. How does Die Linke feel putting forward an agenda to German voters? The German voters can simply not fathom, for the simple reason that the factions within Die Linke are so opposed with one another. It's like putting Mélenchon and Tsipras in the same party. Now, what kind of agenda can Mélenchon and Tsipras, if they were in the same political party, present at people? If they come to a common platform, it's going to be so anodyne, so boring, that in the end, the Alternative für Deutschland is going to get more votes than Die Linke. Oops, that happened. Yeah? What would the cost of a party be? Allow me to say that if we ever allowed ourselves to ask such questions back in February 2016, what would the cost of having a pan-European movement that changes Europe and democratizes be? We would never have, we would not have gotten out of bed to go to the Volksbühne to start it. So one step at a time. Let's see what kind of appeal we can have. Let's move in a sequential manner that builds upon what we have created towards that which we are dreaming of. I think a political party without a clear and concrete program will fail and will split up. Correct. So let's make sure that if and when we run anywhere, we have a clear agenda. We have shown signs so far that, judging by the European New Deal, that we're capable of producing clear, persuasive, coherent, substantial policy agendas. The situation has stalled in Italy. I know, I just came from Italy. We need a political force of civil society and movement, but also another Colau. What can DiEM do? Well, we were in Italy all last week, Claudia, and we went from Torino and Milano to Ferrara, to Napoli, to Bologna, then Napoli, and then lastly to Sicily in Palermo. Everywhere we went, we tried to do 2 things. First, be a unifying force for progressives. You know very well how fragmented progressives, and especially the left, are in Italy. We also tried to lead with ideas, to lead with policies, and not with personalities. We ask a very different question. What needs to be done? What should the policies of the Italian progressives be in the Eurogroup? What should they be about green transition, about transparency, about democracy? And then whoever wants to agree with this policy agenda joins us. And whoever doesn't want to agree with us doesn't join us. If DiEM say yes to the party question, who is going to draft the statutes of the different parties? Well, let me just answer that last question. We will, at DiEM25. The statutes of the parties are not going to be written by any small team within a country. The most important aspect of maintaining DiEM as a movement and not turning ourselves into a political party, but having electoral wings, will be that we must preserve, this is the greatest asset of DiEM, the way we do things. the way that we decide everything collectively, independently whether one is Greek, French, Italian, and so on. So let's say we started an electoral wing, a party here in Greece, a DiEM party here in Greece. The statutes, the manifesto, even the committee that runs this party will have to be approved by all DiEMers throughout Europe. There is a lot of potential in DiEM25, but how are you going to prepare these people politically? You already have experience, of course. I'm going to cut this question short. I'm not going to prepare anyone. I'm not in the business of preparing anyone. We're all going to be preparing together. I'm not a seasoned politician myself, thank goodness. We are going to learn the ropes all together through political activity, through what we are doing. Isn't this electoral wing going to exhaust our limited resources? And instead of investing our resources, our limited resources, in persuading existing political actors and political parties around Europe, we will be wasting them on a campaign that will probably yield us a very low percentage, and then that will bring about the implosion of DiEM25. It's a legitimate concern, but like everything else in life, I believe we're facing two risks, and these are contradictory risks. One risk is that we are not going to go electoral anywhere. And in particular, we're going to miss out on the European Parliament elections of 2019. And next time we meet, there will be fewer of us, and then fewer of us, and then fewer of us. Why? Because let's face it, this constant production of policy papers that have merit, when it is met with inaction, and when these policy papers are not taken up by any political actors, seriously taken up, not being paid lip service to, this is going to create a sense in a large part of DiEM25 of pointlessness, that we are pointless. This is one risk. The other risk is that we will create our electoral wings, we will contest in elections in some places or some elections, and that is going to result in a failure, and the movement will never recover from this failure. Well, two risks. Which one do you choose? I personally, if you put a gun on my head and ask me to choose one of those two risks, I would choose the risk of going for it and failing. I prefer a short and sharp struggle which ends up in defeat to a long-term fading out. This risk, both these risks, are ameliorated if we're very sensible in the way we use our electoral wings. If our electoral wings are only deployed in places where we have a serious chance of success, where we can offer unity and make this a catalyst to do something that we have failed so far to do. To bring into DiEM25, to make DiEM25 known to millions out there who would agree with us and join us if they only knew what our policies are and who we are. So I am convinced that we should go for this, but sensibly. And I will just remind you of the thing I've said 5 or 6 times already. We're not deciding to run for elections now. We're deciding to add another tool, the electoral wing, in our toolbox, and then let's have the discussion once, and if we decide this, on where, when, and how we use that particular tool. Let's stiffen our lips, comrades. Let's take courage from what I have personally observed in the last 10 days in Italy. Wherever we went, we saw enthusiasm in crowds, large crowds, of people who had never even heard of DiEM25 before, when we explained to them what DiEM25 was all about, and also our determination to be at the forefront, at the avant-garde of an attempt to hack into the European Parliament elections in 2019 in one way or another. Ideally, what I would like to see is several options being presented to all of us, and a debate, maybe a video conference debate, between people who represent, DiEMers who represent these different views. Until then, Carpe Diem. It's been good talking to you, even though it would have been far, far better if I could see you, hear you, and respond to you live in the form of a proper Q&A and not this. Thank you very much.